An animated Transformers origin story where Optimus and Megatron are friends? Let's talk about Transformers 1. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Transformers 1, which comes to theaters on September 20th, 2024. It is a new animated origin story about our favorite leaders of the Transformers, Optimus Prime and Megatron. This is back in the day before they became that, where they were actually friends. Now, is this origin story worth watching? My hot take is I think you should watch it. I was kind of between a watch now and a watch later. I think overall I enjoyed it enough to be a watch now. It is a really entertaining origin story that does everything right, but the story. I didn't like the story, at least certain parts of it, but it is just a beautifully animated film. It's got exciting action. It is really funny, like very, very funny, with humor that both kids and adults are going to love. And it has a beautiful ending sequence. So there's enough here that you can watch it. You'll enjoy it. Your kids will probably like it. But there's a few things I didn't love. Now, speaking of kids, for kids, I think it's fine for most kids. Like it is a PG movie. It's kind of a hard PG because there is, plenty of robot violence, some very, very light torture, a tiny bit of language, and a kind of not explicit, but like a more impactful robot death than I expected. So they've got all that. I think it's probably fine for most kids. I probably wouldn't have taken my youngest if I had to choose, but that being said, I think it's fine for most kids. So all that being said, I'm gonna tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap and the ending. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off when I get there. Before that though, I'll keep it vague, I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know I get to those spoilers. So like I said, Transformers 1 is the origin story of our favorite robot leaders, Optimus Prime and Megatron, but this is back in the day. This is back when they are not these massive figures. They are just miners working on Cybertron, trying to mine Energon, and they can't transform. They don't have their cores, I guess, which is what lets them transform. So they are basically stuck in this role, but Optimus, well, in this point, he's known as Orion Pax. He is a dreamer. He wants to do big things, and so he kind of drags his friend, not Megatron, D16 at this point, on this quest to try to do something great. Are they able to do it? Who else will they meet along the way? You have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I loved about this movie. The first, the animation is beautiful. Like it has a kind of like Saturday morning cartoon look to it, but there is tons of tiny details that are really, really nice. The thing I noticed the most is like there are sparks when they like rub up against things. Like there's one scene where Orion Pax has to jump and like grab onto a part of a building, and like when he's going down the part of the building, there's like sparks flying, which is a nice little touch. There's also really nice lights. There's also really nice colored lighting. It is a really, really beautiful film. Second thing I love, it's really funny. There's jokes for both kids and adults. They are very funny, definitely laugh out loud kind of jokes, and I really loved it. It was a really kind of like refreshing kids movie to watch and just kind of like genuinely laugh throughout. The third thing I love, there is some really good action. They take advantage of this animated format with some very intense, very kind of over the top action that is both exciting and fun to see. And the last thing I loved, there is a beautiful end sequence. I didn't love the ending, but the sequence is beautiful. It's got a nice combination of like an impactful moment, music, story elements coming in. It is just a really, really objectively beautiful thing to see. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, I'll just call it the story. It feels very stitched together. It feels very convenient. I mean, it's kind of a kids' movie. This is basically a movie that's geared towards kids, so it makes sense. But to me, the story wasn't as strong as I was kind of expecting, given everything talking about how this is a big origin story. And the last thing I didn't love, there is a turn, a very, very convenient turn, a very, very abrupt character turn that kind of came out of nowhere. It was a little bit shocking. I understand why they did it. It had to happen for, the overall story, but it felt just like a complete 180. So, all that being said, Transformers 1 comes to theaters on September 20th, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it. Overall, I think you should watch it. I really enjoyed a lot about this movie except for the story. And I can get over that because it was still an entertaining movie and really fun to watch. So, I'm going to really quickly go into a recap and ending of this film. So, if you don't want to know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So, like I said, you've got Orion Pax, who is the person later known as Optimus Prime. He is breaking into some sort of like library archive. He wants to know about the origin of Cybertron and like the primes that were the most powerful, I guess, robots on Cybertron. They all disappeared or died in some big battle. He wants to learn more about that. What we find out is that there were a bunch of primes that went to fight these things called the Quintessons. I think that's quintessence, and the primes were all wiped out. And they also lost this thing called the Matrix of Leadership. So Pax wants to learn more about this so he can hunt them down and find the Matrix of Leadership and like do something really big. Now, while he's doing this, Pax gets in trouble. He has to run. He has to leave this library very quickly, and it makes for a very exciting sequence as he tries to get out. Now, D16 or later Megatron helps him out. He like essentially helps him evade the guards. And at this point, Pax and D are very good friends. Now, Pax and D are miners on Cybertron. They are mining Cybertron for Energon, which is this like I guess essentially like a lifeblood. There's these energon cubes that they eat to like give them energy. But it used to flow, I guess, at like rivers essentially on Cybertron, but it stopped flowing after the primes were defeated. And so now they have to mine it from the planet, and it's getting harder and harder to mine. Now, D and Pax are both miners. They don't have their transformer cores. They're missing. We don't know where they went. Apparently, they've never had them, so they've never been able to transform. So they're stuck being miners. Now, Pax is a dreamer. Like I said, he wants to prove that miners can do big things. And so, in order to prove this, he enters this big race that's coming up called the Iacon 5000. It is for all the best racers who are all transformers. But Pax is like, you know what? We could do it. We could enter. We could do something big. Now, D doesn't want to do this. D doesn't want to get involved. D doesn't want to like, rock the boat. So Pax takes him to go watch it, and he gets a really great vantage point that's like right at the starting line. And right when the race starts, the starting line spot that they're looking at pops down, and Pax is like, let's go, let's go. He planned the whole thing. He got them like jetpacks so they could compete. And so they're doing the race. Now, they are at a disadvantage because they can't transform, so they're just running. And the other things are like planes and cars, and they're going way faster. But Pax and D are clever. They use what they can to try to get it in front. And eventually, they do take the lead. There was a cannon that they used to get in front, and then there was like this magnetic puzzle that they had to solve. And eventually they get to the lead. They're going, they're going, they're going. But D gets injured right before the finish line. And rather than go and finish and kind of prove what he's wanted to, I don't know why he didn't go finish. He could have won first. Pax stops, picks up D, and like they limp across the finish line. But in doing this, everyone else passes them. So they no longer win. They don't make a big statement, and they get very injured. So afterwards, they're getting patched up, and they're worried they're going to get in trouble because they were miners. They entered this race only for Transformers. But Sentinel, the kind of leader of this city and the leader of Cybertron, comes and like congratulates them, says it was great. They're inspiring, and their inspirational performance is actually causing the mines to be much better. The productivity is up like 150%. So he's very happy about this. He wants them to like be spokespeople and go down to the mines and like pump people up. And so he tells his assistant, this person named Arachnid, who is, as you'd imagine, like essentially a spider robot, to patch them up and give them the best repair facilities. She kind of makes a note about it. She doesn't do it right now. And before they're able to do anything, this really mean robot called Darkwing comes, who used to be their supervisor down in the mines. He's pissed at them because they messed up his race. And so he takes them and like throws them down to the bottom level of the planet, the lowest level they can go and work, to essentially the trash dump, where this robot named B127, or how he likes to be called, B, is down there. He's a little yellow robot. He talks a lot, very much like a robot we might know. But he is down there by himself, except he has built three friends. I don't remember the name of all their friends, but there's one named Steve who is fun. And they are basically like his, castaway Wilsons. They are robots that he built from trash that he says he doesn't talk to, but he kind of talks to, because he's down here by himself, all by himself. What would you expect? Now, Steve has something in his like head that is causing some static or noise, and when Pax goes to look at it, a like distress signal pops out, and it's an old distress signal from the primes that shows where they went down. It shows the place where they were attacked. And so Pax thinks this might be where the Matrix of Leadership is, and so he convinces both D and B to go help. Now, as they're trying to escape, they are trying to escape on like one of these waste trains that goes up to the surface, and so they try to hitch a ride on there. But while they're doing this, Alita, who was a miner, but she was like in charge of their mining company, and then because of Pax doing something against protocol, she got demoted down here. So she sees them. She doesn't want to like, she's angry at them, and she also wants to try to rise back up in the mine. So she's going to capture them and turn them in. She's going to narc on them essentially. So they all try to stop her. She tries to get, somewhere where she can report them. But while they're doing this, a train eventually gets up to the surface. And when it's up at the surface, it's beautiful, it's awe-inspiring, and they all take it in. They're all in awe until the terrain starts to like rearrange behind them, and it's almost like a wave of terrain that causes the train to kind of like move around and I guess kind of derail, although I don't think it actually derails, but it kind of bucks them all off. So all of our friends, I'll call them the miners, they all fall off. And at this point, it is D, B, Pax, and Alita. So now they have to go on foot. They're walking to this beacon point, and during this journey, they almost get caught by a quintessence ship that's scanning for life forms. And after this, they're continuing to the location, and they see a giant quintessence ship pull up. And while they're watching this, we see Sentinel Prime and some of the other Transformers go to it and offer a bunch of energon to these quintessence. And you can see that Sentinel Prime is clearly serving the quintessence. He like bows before them. One of them gets the leader gets angry at him because their energon payment isn't as big as the last one, and so Sentinel Prime basically is like, I'll make the miners work nonstop until we can get more. And this angers our friends because they are busting their butts to try to get energon, and then they realize it's all going to the quintessence, and so they are upset, but they can't do anything. They're just miners, so they kind of escape from here. Now they keep going, and eventually they do find the cave, and the cave has the remnants of all the primes, but one of them, Alpha Trion, is still alive. He's just, his core is still there, his like spark is still there, but he's essentially like in like deep sleep. And so they give him some energon, and this wakes him up, and he basically tells him what happened. The primes were lured into this cave, and then a quintessent ambush happened, and the primes were holding their own. They're the best warriors. They were outnumbered, but they were doing fine. And that's when Sentinel turned on them and, essentially like turned on them each one by one and allowed the quintessence to overtake them. So this killed them all except for Alpha Trion. And Sentinel did this because he wanted all the power of Cybertron. He took the matrix of leadership and thought he was going to get it, but it kind of poofed away because the matrix of leadership can only go to those who are worthy. And Sentinel clearly wasn't worthy from this. So Alpha Trion tells them that they now know the truth. They have to stop Sentinel Prime. And in order to help, he gives them the cores of the other killed primes that were down there. So each of these little miners now get a core, and they transform. And they don't take on new names yet, but, essentially Pax becomes what will eventually be Optimus Prime. D becomes what will eventually be Megatron. B becomes who will eventually be Bumblebee. And I don't know who Alita becomes. I think maybe she eventually becomes Alita. I think maybe she's just Alita the entire time. Maybe she should just become Battle Angel Alita. But for now, we'll just say she becomes Alita. Now that they can transform, they are much more powerful, but I think they either get an alert or for somehow they find out that Sentinel is coming right to them. And so Alpha Trion sends all of our minor friends back to go back to the city to warn everyone about Sentinel's betrayal. He gives them some proof, but Alpha Trion stays back to fight the Transformers that come to but Alpha Trion stays back to fight the Transformers that come there. He does a good job. He takes some of them down, but eventually he gets captured and taken back to, I forget the name of the city. It's like High Town, High something or other. Let me see. I can't find the name of it. We'll just call it High Town. It's something like that. It's their High Tower, High, wherever it is. Anyways, so they're going to go back there to warn everyone there of Sentinel's deception. So Sentinel 1 takes Alpha Trion back to this city on Cybertron, and he tries to interrogate him. Alpha Trion doesn't give him anything, and so eventually Sentinel Prime beheads him. Now our miners are trying to head back too, and they get captured by a group of essentially rebels. They are kind of old Transformers that are trying to like shake up Sentinel 1's or Sentinel Prime's reign, and so they do like little sneak attacks here and there just to resist. Now D gets upset with them and says, like, you shouldn't be hiding. You should be out there fighting, and I'll lead you. And so this is a big turn for D because he before was like, follow the rules. I don't want to get involved. And now he's like, I'm going to do everything. He fights the leader of these Transformers named Starscream. So I think this group is called like the Cybertronian High Guard. We'll just go with that. But anyways, D says they shouldn't be hiding, that they should be out there fighting, that he'll lead them. And so he fights Starscream and wins. Now, one thing that was weird is like D gets really, really hot-headed. He went from like, I don't want any trouble. I don't, I don't want to get my nose dirty to like, I'm gonna fight you, Starscream, and take over, and we're gonna rise up and fight Sentinel. I mean, I guess he was upset that Sentinel lied to him, but his character arc is very, very abruptly changing. But then Sentinel attacks them. Apparently, he was tracking their, these miners. He apparently was able to track them, and so he tracks them down to where the High Guard is hiding, and he attacks. He captures both D and B and takes a bunch of the High Guard back with him to wherever it is that they are from. I forget whatever their high city is. Now, Pax and Alita are left behind, along with some of the other Transformers. They set out a plan to try to take on Sentinel. So back over in the city, all D, B, and all the other High Guard are, in chains. Sentinel is interrogating them, but Pax, Alita, and Starscream all come to help. They take the train, this train that they keep using, and basically run it through the like high tower where Sentinel One is interrogating them. And the train basically creates its own track as it's moving, so they essentially can drive it into this high tower. Now that causes a distraction, and Starscream uses some sort of like sonic wave or something to get rid of all their handcuffs, and they're able to go and fight Sentinel. Now, when D gets freed, he wants to fight Sentinel, and so they go back and forth, and he is fighting Sentinel this entire time. Now, Pax and Alita are really trying to show the people of Cybertron that Sentinel is a betrayer, and so they capture Arachnid, uh, Sentinel's like right-hand person, because she has like a ton of eyes and she records everything. So they capture her and use her recordings to broadcast the betrayal, to broadcast Sentinel's betrayal to all the people in Cybertron. And so the miners get upset because because they've been working like crazy, trying to get Energon, not having any breaks. And then they see that Sentinel is basically serving the Quintessence and giving all their Energon away. So they get really upset, as you'd imagine. Now, meanwhile, D and Sentinel are fighting a lot, and D eventually is beating up Sentinel. He gets him on the ground, pulls out his like arm cannon that Megatron has, points it at Sentinel, and is about to fire, but Pax doesn't want him to kill him. Pax doesn't want him to start with violence, so he jumps in front of the gun, and D shoots him, like in the side, essentially. This saves Sentinel, but causes Pax to get very injured, and he falls off this platform. D grabs him and grabs him before he falls, and he's like sad. He's like, "Why did you do that? Why do that, Pax?" And then he like turns. So he had some humanity, and all of a sudden his eyes turn red. I guess he becomes a full-on Decepticon and is like, "I'm done saving you," and like drops him. And again, very abrupt character twist because he went and saved him, and he's like sad that his friend is shot and that his friend jumped in front of him, and then he's just like later drops the mic, or in this case drops the Pax, and moves on. Now Pax falls and falls and falls and falls into the core of the planet. Like it was a crazy long drop. But during this time, you have this really, really beautiful end sequence. You've got this lovely music. It's slow. There's really nice animation, really bright, kind of like cool animation. And D is killing Sentinel in this time as well. So you've got like a nice dramatic sequence. It's a really, really beautiful sequence. And basically, Pax is dropping, and D rips Sentinel in half and tells everyone to rise up. So when Pax gets to the core of the planet, there he gets judged to be worthy. He gets judged by, I think Orion. I think Orion's the name of the core planet bot. But in any event, he gets judged to be worthy, and he is given the Matrix of Leadership. And then that transforms him into Optimus Prime. And then he shoots right back up to the battle. Now, during this time, D has ripped Sentinel in half, and he tells everyone to like rise up and essentially like burn this place down. Like now he's killed Sentinel. You'd think he would just take over, but no, he wants to like destroy everything Sentinel's put up. So he just starts like destroying buildings, which is ridiculous. But he's doing this. I guess they need him to because now we have to have Optimus come and stop him. So Optimus jumps up, boom, tells him to stop. They fight. They have a really good fight. It's exciting. And eventually Optimus beats him. And so he banishes Megatron and all the other High Guard, all the followers of Megatron out of the city. Whatever the city is, D and the High Guard are banished from it. So after they all leave, the Matrix of Leadership starts to glow in Optimus's chest, and it pops out, and all of a sudden, Energon starts flowing like water because it looks exactly like water and starts flowing throughout the planet. Apparently, the Matrix of Leadership controls that. So now they have Energon. They don't have to keep mining. They don't have to do dangerous things. They can keep mining. And also, when this happens, all the cores from all the miners fly out and fly to their respective robots because Sentinel was removing these cores from these miners at birth to make sure they wouldn't be able to transform, to make sure they would always have to be miners. And so now they all get their cores and they can all transform. So mass transformation. So now we have an army of Autobots led by Optimus Prime, and he basically it ends with him leading an army of Autobots on the horizon, basically telling the Quintessence like, "We're gonna stop you." So there we go. That is the origin story. That is where Optimus Prime and Megatron's friendship ended. There are two stingers, so make sure to stay for those. During the credits, right after the credits, we see B, or at this point, probably Bumblebee at this point, going down to his friends and telling them about his awesome adventure. And he like wants to show them his new skill. He's got these knife hands. Basically, he can like make knives pop out of his hands, kind of like Baraka from Mortal Kombat. And he's showing this to them. And it's a really funny scene when he learns this because he's like becomes this amazing fighter, this amazing bumbling fighter when he's fighting the other robots up top. But now he's showing his friends. He does knife hands and he accidentally stabs both Steve and someone else. So then he gets sad, and that's that scene. Now, there's a second Stinger too. We see Megatron talking to his people and like telling them to rise up, and he calls them Decepticons. So it seems like if there is a Transformers 2 TWO, it'll be Optimus and Megatron fighting. That's what I would guess. But we don't know. We won't know until then. But first, we get Transformers 1 coming to theaters on September 20th, 2024. Like I said, it's a fun movie. It's exciting. It's entertaining. The story I just didn't love. But it's still worth watching, so make sure to check it out in theaters. If you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you like and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.